Hi, I'm indie fantasy author Melinda Kucsera, and we're back with another episode of Fantasy, Lore, and More. This week, we are talking about the book Twin Moons of Eldradune. So, welcome and tell us about the Twin Moons of Eldradune.
So this is the first book in a 10-book series. I currently have 6 books published currently and 4 more coming. And the Twin Moons is about a couple characters starting on Earth, and they go through a portal about chapter 8, and they stay in Eldradune till basically the midway through book 10. So the majority of the series is on the world of Eldradune.
And what is that world like?
So Eldradune is, there's a portal or bridge that crosses into it. We do have magic. It's a world that does have magic, has gods, and has the people on that world have long lifespans. So the average lifespan is about 400 years, give or take some years, compared to Earth. The main character, Lex, has some innate abilities because he has a background that, I don't know if spoiling it matters, but it's at the end of the book. And then Mara Thorne is the second character, and she and Jorn and a few others go with her on this journey. It starts off with them trying to find this mystery box, this secret little box that everyone's looking for, and it's got these strange runes on it. And for some reason, everyone wants it. And Lex and Mara and Jorn all work for an organization called the Order of Thunder. And the Order of Thunder specifically goes after relics in the modern world. So when I say modern world, the world, I would say about the early 2000s.
Okay.
So they have cell phones and satellites and things like that. But the component to their order is they go after artifacts that are rare and that are very strange, and they try to preserve it. So that is who is going after all this. The order is extremely old. It's based in London. And yes, Lex has a Scottish accent. So that's kind of where it starts. And then about like I said, chapter 8, they go to Eldradune, and then you learn everything about Eldradune through the eyes of people from Earth. So there is learning the world the same as our characters are.
So we should probably talk about what is the book about.
So
I think we skipped that.
Yeah, so the book is about the main characters, of course, Lex Anders, Mara Thorne, and Jorn. Lex is the main character. He has powers develop. It shows in chapter 1 how he actually can feel when magic is around, and his sword itself has magic in it. And yes, he carries a sword with him on Earth in present day, which is a little odd, but he's not walking around downtown London with it, of course. But he can feel magic, and that gets discovered in chapter 1. I'm not saying there's a demon and lots of graphic details of a gory place where he visits. And then in chapter 2, you learn that a lot of the bodies and damage and stuff is actually done by cosmic radiation. Now, what I try to do with magic is I try to add a little bit on the Earth side, try to explain that in our Earth sense, we see this damage as cosmic radiation, right? And no one can explain how cosmic radiation got to ground level, right? We have an electromagnetic shield, it's protected, we don't get that at ground level.
I mean,
so why is it so concentrated?
Growing up reading comic books, for a long time I was convinced that, like, cosmic rays, gamma rays, they just get down here. That's how we get superheroes.
Correct. Yeah,
it's not actually how it works.
That's not how it works.
Sad
No,
to find out.
Our Earth is shielded quite well against those things. So it getting to ground level is very strange from the scientific human side of things. Now, once you get to Eldradune, once you get to those specific magics and specific things, and we learn the cosmic radiation later on is actually used by a specific deity that actually uses that with his kind of magic. How Eldradune works is you have multiple races. Earth has a connection with Eldradune. So over the past 1,000 years, portals have randomly opened up around Ireland and around certain other places on Earth. And these places have opened up to Eldradune to leave humans stranded. And they were accepted at first. The story is they were accepted, and they actually started to commingle and co-breed with the local races and inhabitants in Eldradune. And then that turns a little bit because Eldradune has specific physical characteristics, and of course their long life. And they didn't like that when humans mixed with them, that all of their offspring look like humans. So
wait. What physical attributes did they have that made them different from humans? You can't just say that and not tell us.
So there are 4 major races on Eldradune. So you have the Terrakeen. I will try to use local fantasy vernacular so you can kind of. So these are more of they live on the surface. They are more short. They're shorter. I'd say like between 5'4" and 5'9". A little stockier. No, they all don't have beards, and they're not necessarily dwarves, but I would say that they would fit in that kind of category if I were to give them a category from recent fantasy stuff from the past 100 years. And their women don't have beards, so we don't need to go back to Tolkien there. The Illuminari, they are a very religious race. They are, again, not like elves. They don't have pointed ears, but they are more of the taller, slender, more educated, and very more devout when it comes to religion. The Terrakeen actually do not have magic at all, but the Luminari do, and they worship a deity called Estrella, a goddess named Estrella. The other two races live underground, and we call it the Eldra Deep, in a city called Froyvault is the sub-Terrakeen, and they look very similar to the Terrakeen, or to the Terrakeen on the surface, but they obviously they look a little different because they're underground. So obviously they're a little lighter skinned. They'll have a little less melanin, a little less things that are from sun exposure. And then you have the Noctilvar, and they live in Flattering, and that is a race of. They're also extremely pale skinned because they never go to the surface, and their magics are more involved with a god named Elethra, who they don't necessarily worship her, but she left behind some divine essence that they use to create their totem magics. And they actually have technomancers that use totem magics, specifically in their city, in their race. So that's kind of just a short down and dirty on kind of the races there. But they are definitely not, none of them are 6'6", none of them are particularly like large and muscled. So they do have differences. Their skin types are much different than Earth. Ear shapes, nose shapes, stuff like that are going to be different. So some of those characteristics are the ones that I'm talking about. So they're obvious when you compare a human from Earth to any race from Eldradune.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like I said, this world was created specifically. I don't really like the term magic system specifically, but there are a lot of the magics on this world and in this side of the universe are based off of deity magic.
Okay.
Kind of how it starts. A lot of the deities don't necessarily give you spells to read. This isn't like a Dungeons and Dragons thing. They basically empower them through the use of runes and instruct them on how to use runes to power specific items. So the way the Luminari use their magic, their only real magic outside of maybe wards and defenses using runes is a hard magic system. And again, I don't like using the hard or soft or hybrid system.
Yeah.
For your audience, I'm sure they're familiar with those terms. So
yeah.
So the hard magic would be there's 9 celestial stones, and these celestial stones are from Estrella, and they are 9 stones that are hard locked into the use from Luminari worshippers. Now these stones are made out of a material called magnetite. Now this material actually exists on Earth. Magnetite does exist on Earth, and you can actually use the electromagnetic field from Earth to actually power them through piezoelectric purposes. So now you will get 2 wires in a potato will give you more power than magnetite on Earth, but on Eldradune, the electromagnetic field is much higher. I mean, exponentially higher, because the sun is brighter and closer to the planet. So,
and it's got twin moons, because that was in the title of the book.
Yes, Eldradune does have twin moons. And so this magnetite specifically powers much faster and gives much more power to the spells. And so there's 9 celestial stones specifically, and that is the hard magic part of the Luminari magic. There are only 9 spells, and they can only be powered after they're used. They cannot be used again until they're powered back.
So you got to use them really judiciously. You got to really need it to use it. Like, it's not a thing that you would just use for an inconvenience.
And
well, what are some of these spells?
Spells primarily are offensive or somewhat defensive in nature. So Seal Tempest it basically conjures metallic debris through magnetic forces. It can be used to basically imagine like a razor blade tornado coming at you. You have Ethereal Ghost, and that allows you to actually go through ferric objects, almost like you can move your hand through a metal door. Then you have Ice Tempest, which creates exactly what it sounds like, a whirlwind of ice, and freezing temperatures to the area the spell is working on. And these are not long-term spells, very short-term spells. Fire Tempest, again, basically the same thing. It's basically a fiery tornado, a fiery maelstrom. And then you have Load Lock. This allows a user to unlock and lock doors, magically warded, or also with a mechanical metal lock. This lock can help you open that. You have a spell called Metallic Surge, which uses a magnetic field around the caster to actually repel metal objects coming toward them. So whether it be maybe an iron arrow coming at you from an archer, it can potentially deflect that or protect you from that, or other metal objects, I guess, being hurled at you.
Right.
There's another spell called Echoes. It's a detection spell specifically for magic or specific types of metals in surroundings. In this world, you'll find out things are hidden very well around stone, especially underground in the Elder Deep.
Right.
Magnetic Maelstrom, again, very similar.
I like that.
Instead of creating razors, it is specifically uses magnetic energy to pull, hold, or repel items. So you can actually like pull a metal object from someone's hand, like maybe a hammer, or take something away from someone, maybe something valuable, as long as it's ferrous and magnets can actually pull it. And then the last stone is called Guardian of the Lodestone. That actually summons a protective aura around the stone itself and around the user.
Right.
And it can basically protect you from basically anything metal. So unlike deflecting things like arrows and things, this can actually prevent like a large metal object. I'm talking like, let's say you're in a cave and a big chunk of metal, iron from a cave is coming in on you. You can actually shield yourself from even a large amount of a large massive metal that's falling on you or something. So a lot of these things with the magnetite are centered around metals and stuff because that's how the world and that's how these magics work sometimes. Except for, of course, Ice Tempest, Load Lock, and Fire Tempest, which of course are my favorite spells, to be honest.
Okay. How long does it take for these to power up? Is it different, like after you use it? Is it different for each of the 9, or
it is different for each of the 9. So when one is charged, the users usually carry them in a cloak that has 9 pockets for them. And the user only has to put their hand over one of the stones and can feel a slight buzz from them. And that will tell you it's charged.
Okay.
So they can actually feel them against their body as well as touching their hand to know it's ready to go. So that's how you know they're charged. But they do have different times when they charge.
Right.
Mara uses one of these stones. She has a unique ability with them. And I won't spoil why. She has a unique ability with them, and she uses one of them. She uses a Fire Tempest, and it actually takes weeks to actually charge that stone back up. So for that's just an example.
So are there? So you said there's 9 spells, and they're in the crystal. Is there only one copy of each spell in the crystal, or are there like many copies scattered around?
So these spells are kind of placed into them through a rune that Estrella, basically how she instructed them to create these stones.
So you can make your own.
Only the Luminari can make them. So there's a ritual that the Luminari use to actually imbue these stones. And these stones are actually, except for specific people who are trained with them, any extra copies are locked up pretty tight. So only specific users can actually use them within the Luminari. So a random Luminari person on the street just can't grab one and use it. That's not how it works. You have to actually be trained on how to use it and actually how to cast a spell. And you must be a devout follower of Estrella. If you are someone who is Luminari who is not a devout user, you wouldn't even be able to access the magic to begin with.
Okay. That's pretty neat.
So it limits the use to obviously the devout because it's obviously deity magic. So
do you have to be devout to make one of these stones, or?
Yes, you have to be devout to make them. The Luminari are the religious, if you want to call them religious fanatics, they are the most faithful of all the races on Eldradune. So, but they're also, I would say, the probably ones that have the most ethical and moral codes. They actually have embassies in every city on the surface. They provide, because the Terrakeen don't have magic and they don't have a lot of science research kind of backgrounds. So they use the Luminari specifically from their embassies / churches,
right,
to provide healing, to provide research, to provide, kind of an intelligent work if things are needed for research and things like that. So if there's something weird that comes along, then the Terrakeen will go to the local church, find whoever the leader is, and then ask them for help. And then the Luminari will show up to kind of help with whatever that specific thing is.
So is there just one religion, or are there like many religions?
They are the main religion at this point of history of time. So, and I say that because the first 3 books are meant to be one book. And if you read the first 3 books, you will understand why.
Okay.
Book 4 is a standalone book, but it changes with time. So half the book is with the current characters in the current world of Eldradune, and half the book is 3,144 years in the past, before the fall of a city called Cathernamara. And so half the book is in the past, half the book is in the present. And while they're in the present, they're actually investigating a few cities from the past. So it actually makes sense when you're reading it. It might sound weird now, but it actually makes sense. Book 5 is entirely in the past. And that lore and history is actually required as you speed up to current day. Now, remember, when I say 3,144 years before the fall of Kuthera Namara, which is considered the fall, remember with the long life, this is really just like 8 generations of people, right?
Right.
So this isn't like on Earth where it'd be like 3 millennia, like civilizations have come and gone by. So this is not as a large stretch of time. However, a lot has happened since then, and there were dark ages where the deities actually left Eldradune for a period of time. And all of that is explained in book 5 and 6 specifically. So a lot of deity stuff is involved. A lot of magic is explained. A lot of the magic use you will see throughout. And then a lot of people needing magic. So you'll start seeing that kind of stretch out later on when the Terra King are like, hey, we can't fight these monsters or creatures or beings because we don't have magical weapons. So can you guys hook us up? So you start seeing that. So that's sometimes where the politics come into play. The Elder Deep, they specifically mine deep ore for themselves, but the surface Terra King also mine, and they go into their territory to mine some of those rare minerals and ores as well. So that's where some of the politics and wars and stuff
Gotcha. Yeah.
We'll get in there. And we get into that in the first 3 books for sure.
Okay. So are all these deities, are they all friends or family or are they enemies or opponents?
Not all the friends. There are good deities and there are bad deities.
Okay.
For sure. There are certain rules that are characters. Now, I haven't even released any of this stuff yet. These are in book 7 through 10.
Okay.
It's more into the deity side.
Right.
But the deities that are specific in the first 6 books, and the reason I say that now is because they're all published, so anyone can read them now. The 5 deities are Arindar, Astrea, Alil Tishman, Ilithra, and Zal Thundrax. And Zal Thundrax is the bad guy. He's the evil deity.
Okay.
Who we're going to be parsing with Lex Anders for the first couple of books. So Lex is again, the book's been out for a while, so I don't think if I spoil a little bit here, it's not going to break anybody's heart. I don't think. But Lex is actually.
I spoil all my books on this podcast. Anybody who's expecting no spoilers, this is not the podcast for you. And
so Lex is the son of a Celtic god named Tyrannus from Earth. So his mother was human, his father was a god, and Tyrannus. The way I use gods in this universe is the gods aren't just Tyrannus just doesn't stay there. He has different names on different worlds all across the universe. So and we find out in book 3. That Tyrannus, back in the past on Eldradune, is known as Alil Tishman. So again, they move around. When they leave, usually dark ages happen. When they come back, they usually take on new names so they can start with new followers. So we start finding that out in kind of the lore of how the deities work, because these aren't like these gods aren't gods where they can be everywhere all at once. They actually have to spend energy and time in places, and that's why they have followers, or they create demigods, or they have like the Luminari, faithful followers, like the leader is called the High Luminary.
Right.
And she can speak directly with Astrea, but Astrea can't be there all the time on Eldradune, so she leaves the High Luminary to speak for her in her regard. So that's how the gods kind of work in this universe, is they come and go as they please. And when someone dies, that's a devout follower. There's a realm, I don't call it heaven, that's like an earth term, but I use it so they have like a realm for their followers to come to after their passing. So every one of their devout followers has a soul that goes somewhere after the fact.
So they don't all go to the same places in the afterlife. You can end up with your deity and separated from other people
Correct.
you care about.
Every god or goddess has their own realms they create specifically for those deities. So for the Luminari, they might actually go to an Astrea realm, but Astrea might be known by a different name somewhere else and might create a realm or a heaven for souls from other worlds, so they don't intermingle together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to be with your family in the afterlife, you got to get them to be a devout follower of the deity that you are a follower of. It gives you
a very strong purpose to follow the deity, especially with your family. Correct.
Yeah. And I guess the deities, do they get power from their believers, or they just have power and it doesn't matter?
They do not. They have power. They have power by themselves. However, I will say that the good gods and goddesses reward the reason for being devout. and the evil ones usually enslave. So, and use them for their own evil purposes and ways. And the reason I say that is because with the deities in this universe, it really is a good and evil. There are some that go neutral. There are some that do things that they are punished. We get more into that in book 7 through 10.
Okay.
As we kind of leave Eldradune a little bit to do some things that are more of a threat to Eldradune outside of the first 6 books.
So where do they go if they leave Eldradune? Are they going back to Earth?
So there are other worlds, and there are many other worlds. So again, I don't want to spoil too much from book 7 through 10 since they're not published yet, but there are other worlds, and there's an ultimate enemy after book 6. An imprisoned, the gods imprison this race of people, and this is that involves a time component, and this is a very large threat. And right now, for many years, for many millennia, many eons, they've been imprisoned, but they have found a way to impact their time,
Right.
to get back out of this prison. So they're becoming more of a threat. And then again, our Eldradune, the gods, and then our heroes get involved with trying to stop that new threat that comes out from that. So
Oh, wow.
I'm not trying to spoil too much. This universe is very large. The lore is very large. So far, there's a character. I would describe him as like a little goblin. His race is called the Gleech, and his entire race of people speak entirely in Pidgin. I don't know if you're familiar with how Pidgin talk is. It's an English kind of speak, and so they don't use words like that and what and things like that. So it's very abrupt and seems very uneducated. But his name's Grick, and so far everybody loves Grick. So everyone that reads the book, I always get an email or a response, or if I get feedback from someone that I know, they're like, "Hey, are you going to do like a short story of how Grick people came about and Ruta?" Or everyone's interested in Grick. So I'm like, they're not asking about the main heroes and stuff. I guess I explained that enough. They always ask about Grick.
That's pretty cool. So we're going to do an excerpt.
So this is an excerpt from Chapter 1 of Twin Moons of Eldradune. The small house lay in a secluded valley, cradled deep between the towering ancient peaks of the Peruvian Andes, where stone and sky had warred since the first age of the world. The sun, heavy and red with the labor of its descent, sank toward the western ridgeline, casting long, broken shadows across the land. They reached toward the house and gathered around its weathered walls, lending it a watchful, almost predatory aspect. Less a place built by human hands than a presence that had waited for years, patient and knowing. Lex stood upon the slope above it, still as one of the weathered stones scattered across the mountainside. He ran his fingers through his thick, sandy blonde hair, and let his gaze roam with measured care. He had come to reconnoiter the house, to read its angles and silences, to learn what it would not willingly tell. Yet even before his boots touched the valley floor, he knew the land itself would be his first informant. The vegetation surrounding the house bore the unmistakable signs of violence. Young trees and saplings lay split along their length, their bark torn open and peeled back by a force too powerful and deliberate to belong to any natural storm. This was not the work of wind or rockfall, nor the careless hunger of grazing beasts. It was force applied with intent, leaving wounds that spoke of intrusion rather than accident. Lex moved among the broken growth and placed his hands upon one of the sundered saplings. The wood felt damp and warm beneath his palm. Frowning, he gripped the trunk and pulled. The fibers parted with a wet sound, surrendering as though the cedar tree had already been weakened from within. Thick sap welled up from exposed wood and ran downward in glistening trails, gathering at the base like spilled blood. In the slanting light of dusk, it shone with a sickly luster, too vivid, too alive for something that should have been dying. He circled the house, reading the ground as one might read a weathered page. The earth was uneven, scarred by old slides and newer disturbances. Stones lay turned where they should not have been, and patches of rock clung to rock and root alike. He crouched once to examine a dark smear upon a stone, finding it tacky and foul, reeking of fruit long sealed in a barrel and left to spoil. He wiped his fingers clean in the grass and rose, his expression grim. Beneath the smell and silence, Lex felt another sensation. A faint tremor moved through him, not through the air or the ground, but somewhere deeper, carried through bone and sinew. The nearer he came to the house, the stronger it became, tightening within him like the drawn string of an unseen instrument. He did not yet understand it, only that his instincts refused to ignore it. It was then that memory, unbidden yet vivid, rose in Lex's mind, stirred by the broken trees and wounded earth. Long ago, in a time he did not name, in a place he did not offer freely to thought, he had walked among those who called themselves the keepers of the natural order. They were scholars of root and stone, of leaf and breath, and they spoke in the careful cadence of people who listened more than they declared. From them he did not learn merely survival, but understanding. The vibration strengthened, a quiet pressure gathering within him in recognition of what the wounded land had revealed. Lex lifted his eyes once more to the front door. It hung crooked on its hinges, swinging slightly in the mountain breeze. The splintered wood and deep gouges in the frame told him the door hadn't simply been broken. It had been forced outward by some unknown force. He approached slowly, his rifle at the ready, and its mounted flashlight cut through the growing darkness. The stench intensified as he neared the doorway, turning his stomach. It was a blend of burnt flesh and something worse, a sour chemical tang that stung his throat. Lex crossed the threshold with measured care, drawing the door inward just enough to slip through. He raised the flashlight and let his pale beam cut into the darkness. What it revealed stole the breath from his lungs. Inside, the light fell upon a scene of absolute carnage. The first body lay sprawled just beyond the entrance. The man seemingly cut down while trying to flee. His limbs were twisted at angles no living joint could endure, bones forced beyond their purpose and left where they broke. The skin across his chest and face was charred black, split open in places to reveal glimpses of muscle underneath, cooked and rigid, its sheen dull and unnatural. Lex knelt beside the corpse, his expression tightening as he studied the damage. These were not the burns of hearth fire or lamp oil. There was no pattern of spread, no scorching of the surrounding floor or walls to match. The destruction became deep within the man's chest cavity, radiating outward, as though the flame had been born inside him and torn its way free. Whatever had done this had not burned the body. It had unmade it. So that's it.
Wow.
In the unmade it part, I took that from Tolkien.
You were a Tolkien fan. It's okay to
like
do that.
Throughout, just because I love words like that, unmade.
Yeah, I have them in my books too, and sometimes I forget that's where I got it from. I mean, I have my own version of Galadriel too, but I made her a tree. Queen of trees.
Funny. That's actually really funny because there are some characters that I have not in this series, but I'm writing several other series, and some of those I've actually used.
Yes, and you might come back and talk about those other things, those other series. Correct. You said you have many opinions about Tolkien.
I do. I have lots of opinions on the perspectives and how people interpret Tolkien.
I would actually like to know what your opinion is on, like, I've seen a lot of discourse online recently about this, how some companies have been drawing names and things from Tolkien, doing things that he would be absolutely against and horrified if he was aware of things they were naming them for. The Palantir comes to mind.
There's a part of Tolkien that, so you have the books that he wrote, right? You have all the books, and some books that, his son wrote, or other people have added their ghostwriting ability to add to the lore and the legend that is Middle Earth. And I appreciate that, because somehow some of his story did feel unfinished. Actually okay with some of those. However, sometimes the interpretations of them is not where I like. And the reason I think your example is perfect. So he was a very religious man. Him and C.S. Lewis sent book manuscripts to each other in drafts all the time for their comments to each other.
Yes. Although it's ironic that C.S. Lewis wanted his books to be an allegory, and Tolkien was absolutely horrified that anybody would think his books were an allegory. It's just funny. I saw a thing about that earlier, and I was like, wait, that's right.
You're right.
It's just hilarious.
That's
yeah.
And I do agree. C.S. Lewis, the allegory is strong.
Yes.
But
it was intentional.
It is intentional. And also, I also believe, though, that with the modern people trying to change past books, I want to leave those past books. If you want to write something new, make it up yourself. Because if you're changing the lore and the purpose of someone's writing from a period of time, that should stay in the period of time. That's just kind of the way I feel about it. Because
I agree.
We can write a book in 2026, and it might have the bones from Tolkien or C.S. Lewis or Robert Jordan or any of these people.
Right.
However, it should be different. I don't like it when modernity or the verisimilitude is taken out of those old stories. I don't like that at all.
I think people forget that those are a time capsule of a different time, a different way of thinking. It reflects the attitudes and the upbringing of the people who wrote it. And these are things that don't exist anymore.
It's also a period of time, like the Odyssey is a perfect example of this.
Yes.
Modern interpretations versus it was written a very long time ago.
It
don't
may not
add
even be
modern spins
real
to it.
either. So I'm okay with
Correct,
people.
correct, correct.
I'm okay with people making up and doing all kinds of things with the Odyssey. It was originally like probably an oral story, and by the time it was
Correct.
written down, it may not even resemble the original story.
No, that is true. But the part that did get written down,
Yeah,
let's at least not change what's thousands of years old.
I have a particular favorite rendering of the Odyssey, and that is Dan Simmons wrote a duology, and the first book was called Ilium, the second book called Olympos, and it was basically some post-humans are on Mars. They apparently live there. They've terraformed it, and they decide that they are bored because they are post-humans. They have evolved themselves to have almost godlike powers. It's all through technology because they're not actually gods, but they kind of forget that they are not actually gods, and they decide to clone historians from the past, and they clone other people, and they essentially like recreate the Trojan War, and they get these cloned historians to tell them whether or not it's accurate what they're doing. Well, and they're also, because they think they are the Greek gods, because they've forgotten they are human, and that is technology that allows them to fly and shoot lightning bolts and things. They are acting as if they are the Greek gods mentioned in Homer's tale, and it's a fantastic duology. It is so much fun, and I love that. Like the Trojan War.
Appreciate that. Correct. See,
Yeah.
I like the adaptations and interpretations of taking a story and taking what I would call the architecture, the framework,
Yes.
and then changing it totally.
Yes.
I love that because that is imaginative. That is taking something,
Yeah, and it
popular
doesn't.
known story, and then
Yeah,
changing it.
and
I
it
love
goes.
that.
It goes plenty of places. I mean, eventually they realize that this is not cool, and then they try and escape from it. And there's also these robots out mapping the solar system who lose contact with Earth, and they're like, we should go see what's going on. And the robots have taught themselves literature, so they argue about Proust versus Shakespeare, and it is just hilarious that there are these robots arguing about this. That is what they do to pass the time. Who is the better writer and why?
Yeah, I know you get Nietzsche arguing with Aristotle or something.
Yep.
No, I agree. I love those.
That's my favorite part of it.
And here's the thing too: is if anyone cared about my opinion on things, especially in the modern adaptation world, where
Right.
I think less people are reading books, more people want the movie or want the graphic novel or something. Because honestly, I just think people are getting lazy. That's just my personal opinion, but I'll leave that to my own. But
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think we're inundated with so much that people are looking for a way to turn off from things, because you listen to the news for 5 minutes and it's all bad. It's all terrible. And there's so much fear and uncertainty, and there's so many harmful narratives, like what to believe about AI. Is it taking your job? Like, will you have a job next year? And hearing Sam Altman say that he wants you to outsource all of your thinking to ChatGPT and pay him for the benefit. And then you go to work and you have quotas and things where you have to use AI, that even if you don't want to, because you need to keep your job to pay your bills, but you don't know if you're going to continue to have a job because are you teaching the AI? It's like, so having all of that, and then the very real climate change and being unable to avoid it because it is happening around you and it is affecting you, and almost everybody is feeling its effects in ways that you just can't ignore. And you just feeling so powerless to do anything about it. I think so more and more people are searching for something, some hope, some connection, something positive to take their mind off all these things that they can't do anything about.
Well, I have something positive to say.
Sure.
So for the people that are worrying, this is what I like to say. I'm someone who I was in the military and I've deployed to war. And one of those things I've learned is don't sweat the small shit. And when we look at the news, we make it feel bigger than it really is. Now, I'm not saying that things shouldn't matter and things that won't impact you. Things do. But but humans are very adaptable. Now, I'm not saying AI won't take a job, but It's very possible that may create other opportunities for you to take advantage of.
That's my hope.
Not going to be able to fix plumbing on a toilet, or install solar panels or do any of those things. So I still think that we have some things AI can't do. And honestly, I think AI is going to get to a point where even on the creative side where we're seeing it now,
Right.
I think that's going to hit a saturation point in not many years because AI is now being trained by some of its own AI work
Well,
at this point.
they've been
So
buying like old and rare books and destroying them. Amazon is doing this
I've
too, is
heard that.
scanning them and destroying
Anthropic
the books
lawsuit. I've
because
heard about
it's
that.
not,
Yeah.
it's transformative if you destroy the book, which I have some issues with that. So I don't know where this is all going, but that is my
Yeah.
hope that as it
Yeah.
transforms things, that there
I do have
become
hope.
jobs that we can't even conceive of right now that end up coming into existence because of all this, so that
Well,
there
I'm
is
sure there's
some
the same
place
reason
to
why
go.
you became a fantasy author too. Is it's like I mean, even though I'm working to be something to where if you read my book, you're not brought into the I was just at work, I just came home, I just looked at the news, I just got a bill in the mail. I want you to read my book and live in another world for a while, like totally just empty your headspace on it. And that's why I write fantasy specifically. Not just do I like the genre, I like the world building and lore and
Right.
stuff. I want the reader to really escape from it. And I will tell you the best I wrote this in an article, but the best letter I got from a reader. She was an older woman. She was in her 70s and she lost her husband. And she hasn't been able to do very much since his death. And for some reason, she got my book off Amazon. Now I don't
It's got a
my
cool
Amazon
cover.
my algorithm does not push. I'm like 4.2 million
No, but
sales
it
on
has
Amazon.
like a really cool cover. So if she did come across it, go look at the cover. It's a very cool cover. It's the perfect mix of like classic fantasy and modern fantasy. Like I don't know who your designer is, but they managed to hit that somewhere in the middle. So it looks like it's
So
in
the first
the
cover was
older
done
tradition.
by a man named Alejandro Colucci.
Right.
He did some Witcher books before. Now books 2 through 10 were done by a different artist because of I'll just say time issues. We'll be friendly
Yeah.
on the podcast today. But no, she wrote me this letter and basically she said she hadn't read for decades and she got my book and for some reason she read it and it then made her not think about all the grief and stuff that she was going through and she felt like she could get out of the house and meet up with her friends again. And I'm not saying that it's just it gets you out of the current world. That's the whole
It
point of
does.
reading.
It
It's not
yes.
my book. It could have been any book. Could have been your book. Could
Yes.
have been any book.
Reading is it just experiencing story, whether it's
Reading
reading.
conjures your soul.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't know if you've read R.A. Salvatore. I'm sure you have.
Yes,
My
somebody left a review back in 2017 on one of my books that it's like it put A, D, and D, and I had to Google it because I didn't know what that was. And then I went down a whole rabbit hole, and then I went and it was like, well, now I need to read some of these books because I really write like this? I need to know.
I read. So he's written a whole bunch. He's written Star Wars books. He's written all kinds. But my favorite, Drizzt Do'Urden.
Yes, that's the
That's
one I read.
I read
And
Homeland. It was on the pool table at a military deployment. Is this ratty paperback copy of Homeland.
I
And I
think
picked it
that's
up.
the one they were comparing mine to.
I picked it up
That's
and I read it, and I was like, I read it. I just kind of it's. I read the entire book in one sitting, and I got done with it, and I was like, this is like it's like fantasy, like soul food. You know what I mean? It's like
yes. It's
like
very
you're taking it
immersive.
in, and it
Yes.
totally just makes you feel good. And it's like Drizzt Do'Urden's a good character, and he's really trying to repel evil, even though his race is evil. And it's just you love the character so much, and even some of the side characters you kind of fall in love with. And then Guinevere, of course, the Panther. And so I fell in love with that book, but it's one of those things where books are therapeutic, and I think fantasy books are the best at that. Might not be your genre. Go if you're a crime novelist, go read a crime novel, but get out
But
of the
also
real
read some
world.
fantasy books because we like
Yes,
writing them.
100% read some
Please.
fantasy books. That is your true
Shameless plug.
therapy. Your true therapy
Yeah.
is fantasy books because it is. You're in a different world. You're not watching news and watching election coverage or listening to the latest person. You don't need that slop. You
I
just
mean,
want
you need to be aware, but not enough where it like
correct.
depresses you, and you
Yes.
don't need to be aware all of the time. Like we
Yeah,
can't
if
do
if I have to
much
go
in
cry because
between
of a news article,
elections.
yeah, if I
Yeah,
have to
other
cry because of
than
a news article, there's something wrong.
yeah. I mean, you definitely should call your congressperson or your local politician if there's something going on that's going to affect you negatively, and make sure that they are aware because they are supposed to work for you.
I think
And
AI data centers is a perfect example of that. I live in a very small town,
mhm.
and we had 2,000 people show up to our city council meeting because of an AI data center. And which, again, is like they
Did
couldn't even fit in the building. They couldn't fit in the courthouse.
did they end up putting the data center in, or did your politicians
No,
listen?
it's currently in the state of Tennessee. They kind of put a kind of a moratorium for a while while they investigate.
Yeah, that's
But
what we have in New
this
York.
wasn't, but it wasn't even going to bring jobs. The initial pitch was
No,
like 10 employees.
they don't bring jobs because you
and
don't
no
need
infrastructure. No infrastructure
don't-
support in our small town, which was going to hurt us.
yeah,
a lot.
they don't need much staff for those things. Just
Yeah,
like
it's 10
a
10
few
people is
IT
what they said.
guys. Yeah, it's very low.
You're publisher. So I have a kind of a question. You're an author and a publisher. What's your perspective on because you write books?
Yeah.
Do you just want to write the books, or do you want to have to do everything especially as a self-publishing author? Doing everything's a lot of time compared to just writing the books. I just want to write the books.
That's the great thing about being an indie author is that there is no one way to do it. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There's whatever way works for you. You don't have to do all the things, just the things that work for you. So I don't do all the things. I don't do TikTok. I don't really post much on social media. I like more to answer other people's posts on social media. I'm not really a big fan of posting my own stuff on there, but I like newsletters. So I do a newsletter and I do that.
That's smart.
Very.
Actually, I listened to your last week or a couple weeks ago with Bean, I think was his name.
Yes.
And,
yes.
He had a really good idea about almost doing like a song with part of like an intro or story of a character.
Yes.
It's kind of catchy. I like it.
He had like 2 different blurbs, like one from each of the different characters' perspective. He has a lot of really cool stuff. That was a really fun conversation.
That's a great idea. Now, I to be honest, I'm not seeing stuff sometimes. I kind of got lost with his stuff a little bit because I didn't follow it. I didn't read any of his blurbs or anything. But
if you go to his website, you can you can click and there's music and you can see the different blurbs. It's really interesting.
That's what I'm saying. I really like it. He's got it set up really well.
Yeah, no, it's very cool.
He has a vision and he's running with that vision. It's not just throw up a website, put it on Amazon, move on to the next book. Like he's got a plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he spent 8 years like figuring out like every aspect of it. And like when you spend 8 years thinking about and wanting it a certain way, just living life and networking, you eventually find that way.
I'm going to buy his book right away just from the effort, even before I even read it.
Yeah, they have a cool special edition.
When authors put that much into it, it means they really care. It's not sometimes with indie authors, sometimes it's not about trying to get the movie rights done by Amazon or something. Sometimes it's just because you want to put out a really good product and you have a good plan. And I want to support authors like that a lot.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I'm waiting for the audiobook because I'm an audiobook person. I just can't fit any more books in my apartment. I live in New York.
I like the crack spines. I like to bend the front of the book.
No, I like books too. I just have so many that they're literally like piled up on my couch. Like I can't sit on the couch. They're piled with books. They're piled on the dresser.
Outside of my top 10, the top 10 authors, all of my books I have extra, I actually donate to local libraries.
Yeah, I got to do something. I have too many copies. I have 30 something books published, finishing my 37th book.
Congratulations.
Hopefully soon, if the characters allow. It's always if the characters allow. By their grace, I finish things. If they're not interested in doing the things that need to be done to end the book, then the book continues until they do. I have a lot of copies of my books, but I also have like a lot of books from indie authors, people who've been on past shows. I have a lot of books.
Yeah, I love reading. One of the things I have a little teeny baby YouTube channel I just started. I got a whole 15 subscribers, and I one of the things I wrote on there was some advice to new authors starting out, because again, it's hard when you start out with really no guidance.
Yeah.
Just trying to learn it your own. But also to the aspect of when you're writing, it's like just don't listen to how to write your book. Write it your way.
You can always go back and edit it and fix it
if
later.
Your editor tells you it is absolute trash, you need to change this, then you can listen to them. But get a couple beta readers. Revise as many times as possible. I hate these people like don't revise your book, don't listen to other people. No, if 5 people tell you that chapter 1 sucks, revise chapter 1. I think that's good advice. So
yeah,
but yeah, I really like it where it's going. I like more human authors are writing more these days and self-publishing. I hope we can get AI books out of there as fast as possible. Although I
don't think so. I worry about what is going to happen next with, Amazon scanning books and other, like, where is
that is a
that going
concern of
to
mine.
go?
That
You
is a
know,
concern of mine. That is a concern of mine.
I don't have an Amazon account anymore, but for other authors, we're not wide. I was only on KU for a year or two way back in like 2016, 2017. And then I went wide in 2018. So I've been not depending on them since then. Well, now I don't have them at all because they terminated my account in December.
Well, I am currently on there on all 6 books, and I'll plan on doing all 10 books on there. But I also sell limited edition books on my website as well, and I'll probably have them out on different places. I mean,
That's the smart way to be, especially since we don't know where all this is going. And like Amazon is a data company. Yes, they are also a store, but if you look at the money that they make more from their technology side, from the AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, which powers a significant portion of the internet. And so there's going to be, and so we don't know where things are going to go. So it is smart to have your eggs in other baskets just in case.
and I think I'll do that with my other series when they come out.
I mean, unless you're doing fabulously in KU.
Correct.
KU is Kindle Unlimited.
It's one of those things where I'm not very good at even how to choose keywords and stuff, so I might have to find someone to help me with that.
Right.
So it's very possible that I mean, I have 28 reviews on my first book. It's like, now Goodreads, I have a little more.
But like reviews, like people don't leave reviews as often, so it's not it. And I don't know how much people actually look at reviews anymore. I don't. Sometimes I do. If I do, it's the 1 stars because it's only really for the trad books that don't have a blurb, that just have like all these authors I've never heard of saying it's the most fabulous book I've ever. And I'm like, well, what is this thing is about? So the 1-star rants will never lead you wrong on those. They will tell you in excruciating detail what it's about. And I bought books because of those 1-star rants, because they described everything I wanted. And I was like, you know what? Where do I buy this? This is what I want. I know you hate it, but that's okay because they wrote it for me. And you just described my ideal read. Where do I buy this?
The author said on Melinda's podcast he doesn't like magic system use, so we're not going to buy his stuff now.
I like magic systems.
I know a lot of people do. I'm one of those people that.
But it's good to have other types of fantasy out there.
Don't follow someone else's rules. Just make the magic make sense to the reader. That's all that matters.
And having it based on deities, I mean, that's a legitimate magic system. There's a lot of books that do stuff like that. I mean, I have that as well as part of mine. It's an aspect of it, but it's
as long as it makes sense.
Yeah, but going back
to
to
explain in one page, like
where did you get the idea for all of this from? Is it something that you were carrying around for? There's a lot, fantasy authors seem to break down into like a couple of different camps. I've had the idea when I was 5, and which is me. That was me. I invented this world when I was really little. I have no idea where the inspiration came from. It's always been with me.
That's impressive.
And then there's others who come to it later, something they read. I'm always curious about that.
I have a lot of work experience, a lot of careers, a lot of education. And the only 2 things I published before Twin Moons of Eldradune was a dissertation and a thesis.
Okay.
And I've always loved fantasy, been reading it since I was a wee lad. And I did play some RPGs, like some Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. And I just had this idea.
I'm jealous. I've never played an RPG, and yet, apparently my books are like RPG campaigns and one-shots, but I've never played any of that.
Here's the thing. People that play RPGs, now not in my case,
right?
Because I never stayed in one place long enough, to be honest, but I know people who have played RPG, an entire campaign, for 7-8 years, once a week, for 4 to 6 hours, and they've played for 7 years. That story has to be impressive to keep everyone that interested. And so the DM or whoever's using adventure books, whoever's writing those books for them, or if they're writing them themselves, it's kind of how the Vox Machina crowd got popular on Amazon, right? It's this very long, enduring RPG that turned into a story because the people who are playing their characters are changing the story as they go based on their decisions. So it's actually kind of a cool way of kind of putting a story together and having multiple people kind of help write it. But I think if you can keep a story interesting for 7 years of playing something, I think that should be put on a spine and put out in the world to read. So that's kind of how I see fantasy is if you enjoy it, then do it.
Yep.
Make a movie on it. make a comic book of it, whatever it is, I'm okay with it as long as we keep it authentic and don't make it so modern that it loses what the originality of it was.
Yeah. Although I
Like, I
think
don't
you
want to
can
see
do,
Batman with bunny ears. If Batman ever had bunny ears, I wouldn't be interested in watching it, right? So,
I think you can take fantasy, not like someone else's fantasy, but your own fantasy and make it
sure,
modern.
sure.
I
You're
mean,
your own. I 100% agree. 100%
yeah.
agree. As long as it's your own.
I never intended to write fantasy that takes place in our world, but my
To build
characters
a whole
decided
world.
to find a frickin' portal and come here, and I had to
Exactly.
deal with the fallout of this, which was not intended. So you can write epic fantasy that takes place in the real world, even if it's New York City. I have done it. It was not the thing I planned.
Yeah. No, I like that too because there's a lot of familiarity for readers, especially because
Yeah.
in the modern world, you have this mix
I
of
did fudge the geography a little bit. I didn't think people wanted
sci-fi.
to read all the streets that they walked down.
Yeah, well, you do have a lot of sci-fi and fantasy that can kind of mix together a little bit, kind of hybrid together. Because you can
Right.
have like sci-fi on Earth where there's aliens, right? War of the Worlds or
Yes.
something like that, and then I don't consider that fantasy. But if you could
I
add science
mean,
fiction and
I
fantasy together,
I consider anything. Basically, in my opinion, everything is fantasy unless it has like hard science involved. Then it becomes science fiction. So, like, most of science fiction is actually fantasy. Like Star Wars is fantasy. There's
no, I'm
literally
saying
no
that's
science in there at
that's
all.
fantasy. When I'm talking like War of the Worlds specifically when I was using that references.
That
Is
is that
alien
is more
invasion on Earth.
sci-fi, yeah.
Yeah, alien invasion.
Because that does
It's
have science in it. The reason the alien invasion fails and the aliens die is science.
well, I think Star Trek. I think Gene Roddenberry probably leans more towards sci-fi, but has a little bit of fantasy elements,
It's more
especially on some of
fantasy.
the. Well, I
It,
mean, because even in Star Trek, they do have like some creatures that have some pretty heavily. They have powers that are pretty interesting.
yeah,
Not
it's
just
fantasy. I
yeah,
mean, come
yeah.
on,
So
Q.
I do
Q
believe
is
there is a
Q
mix of
is like
fantasy.
a archmage or something. I
That is
mean,
true.
let's be honest.
That is
The
true.
Borg are the orcs,
Possibly, possibly they could be orcs.
and there's not much. All the science in there is completely made up in this mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, they
So
even have these.
I mean, I love
these
Star
things.
Trek.
No, I love Star
I
Trek
haven't
too.
watched some of the newer ones just because streaming costs money and it's not currently in the
And
budget,
Klingon
so I
shouldn't
haven't
be
seen them.
singing dance numbers.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the series, but I've heard of it. But yeah, so teaches their own on that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
again,
like hard
I like the old
science.
stuff. I like the old stuff.
Yeah,
I like
like
science
science,
too.
like
Yeah.
science fiction is like Alastair Reynolds and like some other folks like him. He's just one of my favorites. I've read so many of his books, and there's so many more that I need to read. I'll get to, but because it's very much based in like science. My favorite of him is Pushing Ice, where they're supposed to be drilling on asteroids, and they get caught in the wake of this alien artifact and dragged billions of miles away at some rapid speed and have to figure out how to survive. They can't, even if they were to get out of its wake, they can't get back to Earth. It's such a cool story. But that's
Yeah.
science.
Yeah,
There's all kinds
I
of
like
relativity and stuff.
I like how three body problem brings
That
it to
was that is
science.
science.
Yeah,
That is
there's
one of my
also
favorites
fantasy
too.
elements that I
Yes,
consider
the
fantasy
Dark
elements as well.
Forest is leans a bit more fantasy. No shade on I can't pronounce his name. How do you pronounce his name? The author. I I love his books, but I do not know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, I don't do well with some of those names. I don't do
So
well with some of the character names, to be honest.
yeah, like the Three Body Power is a lot of science in there. The sequel is more fantasy, but there is no way it couldn't be. It takes place further in the future, and it's taking all of his stuff further, like to the furthest extreme it can go, and science isn't there yet. So it's extrapolation, and when you're extrapolating, at some point you kind of cross the line into fantasy because it's not
Is
provable.
it pronounced Season Lou? Season Lou?
I don't know. It's the coolest name ever, but I have no idea how you pronounce it.
I can't pronounce it. I think the last name's Lou, though. I think.
Yeah, it is Lou. I just don't know how you pronounce his
Six,
name.
I think the X is silent in Chinese. The Six San Lou? I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
I don't
I've
wanna
never
butcher
heard
it.
anybody pronounce it. I don't want to slaughter it because I love his books.
I don't want to slaughter it either because it's a really cool, unique story, and the problem with it is it's so complex, especially as they do time jumps.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how the series is really going to get through just
I
the
haven't
lunar
watched the
Earth part.
series, so
Because
I'm not
once you
worrying
leave
about
Earth and you
that.
start building ships on the moon, like it starts getting very quick. So I don't know if you've read that far. I hope I didn't spoil it for you.
I've read the first two. I
Okay.
didn't realize the third had come out, and so I need to read it because I was waiting, and then I guess it came out when I wasn't looking, and so now I have to read it.
Just snuck out on you.
Well,
Yeah, no,
like the
I think
first
it'll
two
be
came
good.
out kind of close together, and then I think he wrote something else in between. Not sure, but it didn't come out right away, and yeah.
I actually only know the series. I never even knew it was even a book series. I remember my parents sent me a thumb drive in the mail saying, "Hey, listen, we got this. It's completely subtitles because it's all in Chinese. Three Body Problem. Read it or watch it." So I watched it. It was like a first season of it. It was all obviously in Chinese. You had to like read the subtitles, but it was a good, interesting story. And so I read the books, and then they released. I read the first two books, and then they released the
I've only read
current
the books.
series, and it was like, okay. I mean, they hit the high points, like they get the points of what
They're
you
not
need.
short books. There's a lot that happens in them.
They are not, but even like some of the words imply so many things. Just like one line is basically implies the entire intent for the future books.
Right.
So it is so important, and I think the show tried to explain that the best it could. But again, I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't read the series yet. It's a great series to read. I recommend reading it if you really like fact-based, strong science type stories.
Yes. I like those.
If you're just reading it for characters,
They
you're
have
going to be
those
bored.
too. No,
They're,
there's
they're
some
good
good
characters.
characters. Yeah.
There are some good characters, but I would say like half of the book is science. Pretty decent. It's good
Or like
science.
characters explaining science or figuring
And
out
characters explaining
science.
science.
Yeah.
Correct. Because all the characters are scientists. So
Yes.
that would make the majority of them are scientists anyway.
Yeah, there are some that are not, but
Yeah.
I like it. It was a great
It
story.
is. I agree with you. In fact, I have not read a series lately that I really disliked.
Yeah, me either.
Like, I haven't read a series lately that I've just put down like after chapter 2 and be like, oh, I'm done. Because I understand that too. Like the reason why my first three books are meant to be one book, the first book's going to be exposition heavy. And I know that. But I had to release them in three books because it would have been too pagey,
Yeah.
So I had to do it that way. But I understand the first book's exposition heavy. So I understand why that may turn people off, because if they're not into the lore or the basis of a new world and how those systems work, then I understand that might scare people off. But again, it is meant to be one book. So
I don't do that.
we shall see.
It's like we're in book 37, and I'm like, I know that there are these things that are part of this world. Maybe we should like show people. Maybe we should
no,
like
that's good,
they're
though.
passing
That's
by
fine.
it. Like maybe we should make mention that there's more than what we've been seeing, because yeah, I'm the
I
opposite.
like episodic
It's
books,
more
though.
action, more. Mine a bit episodic, more action,
Yeah.
more. It's very character driven. If you want exposition, I am not the author for you.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I think that those episodic books in fantasy, I actually don't think there's enough of them, to be honest.
Well, not
So
episodic. I mean, exposition heavy books. Mine
it
are
is
not
exposition
exposition heavy.
Well, I mean, if you have 36 books, then
Yeah, no, I
that's a
we
lot.
just
I can't even imagine if I did
I'm
more
just
than
chipping
10.
away at the lore, like little bits, things that
Yeah, I
I've known
got you.
about for 30 books just finally showed up in there because I'm like, maybe this story kind of lends itself to this. Let's dig a little into the curse that we've made mention, and we know the character's curse. Maybe we dig into it a little bit here because it kind of fits with the action and the adventure that we're on.
Yeah. Well, I
I'm all about
kind
that.
of miss books where one book, and I'm guilty of it myself. That one book, when it has a clean ending, it's a
Yeah.
standalone, read-only book, and even if it's the third book in the series, it stands alone. Sometimes I miss those books. My books, good luck. Like you're gonna be so behind if you don't read them in order. So
Yeah.
but that's how they're built, and I'm guilty of that as well. But maybe a publisher would hate me because of that if I ever.
Think so, because like I read a lot of other authors, and like one of my favorite authors, Craig Schaefer, who writes a lot of urban fantasy. He also has an epic fantasy series that I'm going to read next because I didn't realize he had that, and now I feel like I need to do that. But he has a number of urban fantasy series that take place in the same world, and there sometimes characters cross over, like Harmony Black and her partner stole the Hemikuta, the car, from the other group of characters, Daniel Faust, and he was like really angry and she just drove off with his car, and then it showed up in her series because they stole the car. They needed wheels, and it was part of their adventure, so it was a kind of a crossover adventure. And then there are other series in this that are pick up with like elements of it. Like there was an event that happened in the other two series and the ripple effects of it, how it affected other characters. And it's interesting. If you read all of it, like, you got all the Easter eggs and you see how it all fits together. But I think you could also read his stuff and see them as different. And I hope that is what we are doing, because I do have series that pick up where other series left off, and I have series that cross over each other. And I always hope that if someone were to pick up any one of these, they'd be fine and wouldn't be confused. But I always worry that if you don't read it all, you're gonna be. If you do read it all, you'll be laughing and picking up on things that people who don't read it all don't pick up on.
That's cool. That's so cool. I like reading. I'm not really into the urban fantasy stuff. I like more of the.
I like urban fantasy. It's just it's just interesting to see how they integrate magic into the real world and deal with
my wife likes those books. She likes a lot of those, urban fantasy.
Because it presents interesting problems, especially like in a book where there's magic and science. Like,
yep.
How does that? And it's always an interesting problem to have to solve. Like, I find that endlessly fascinating how they handle that. Like, where does science end and magic begin, and vice versa?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm going to start writing my crime novel series.
Well, your books, your characters go from Earth to Eldradune, and it's our 2000s, you said.
Correct, early 2000s.
So, yeah, so if they were to take one of the crystals back to Earth, would they be able to use the spell?
They do. They would work on both, but you're right, though.
Would they be able to charge it?
The magnetite wouldn't charge as fast, correct.
Right.
So
you could have magic and technology in the same world, and you will have to deal with that binary.
Well, and that's one of the discussions I have with the characters, with Mara and Lex, is, well, if this portal exists, and there's been people, humans have crossed this portal, then some of the old legends from Earth, whether it's Excalibur or all these other things, it's very possible those were directly influenced from Eldradune, from our past. So they had that conversation in there. So that's kind of, it's just kind of a way to kind of blend them together.
And if they go to different worlds, like, because there would be different science.
That happens in book 7 through 10. That does happen in book 7 through 10. And yep.
Are those the ones you're writing now?
No, those are already written.
Those are already written, but they're not out, because you said the first.
So 7 and 8 will release in December together.
Okay.
Again, weird how I write my books, but 7 and 8 were meant to be one book.
Now, I release books together too. I just, if they belong together, I don't know. I like publishing them together.
And then 9 and 10 will be released in early spring. So December of 26 and then early spring, 9 and 10. Then the entire series will be out by early spring.
So that'll be the end for now.
That'll be the end for Lex and Mara and the crew from Eldradune for now. And there's enough interest. There's plenty of lore and history to go back and do short stories on characters, or to do more lore building or historical kind of prequels and stuff. There's plenty of that.
So would you do another series?
Yeah, so I have another 10-book fantasy series I've actually just started.
In the same world or somewhere different?
Nope, totally different. I'm doing a totally different.
I admire you. Everything is written in the same world at the same time, which is kind of crazy.
No Earth at all exists in this book at all.
Okay.
It's on a whole new world named Koroveth, and I've already kind of built the map and stuff. And that one's going to be much more, less of the hard magic systems, if that makes sense.
Right.
More of there's going to be magic. It'll be more binding or innate in a way.
Okay.
So we're going to go a little more traditional fantasy on that. More of some of the cool things of either creatures or monsters or things of that world.
Maybe you'll come
I
back
kind of want to get away from the multiple magic. Now, I am going to have some deity stuff in there, so the deity stuff still stays, because I think that adds to lore of that world.
Right.
So I like the deities.
Same deities or different?
Different deities, totally different deities.
Okay.
I'm changing the entire thing, so it'll be a totally different universe.
Okay.
Actually, I've already finished the first book of a sci-fi 3-book series.
Okay.
And that does start on Earth, but also has 5 other worlds involved, and then broadens from there. That's more of a, I would say that's more of a, it can get complicated, but it does start on Earth. There's a human character involved. And then I've already written 90% of a horror book in a first-person narrative. So my Eldradune books are all written in multiple POV.
Right.
And I do that because when I wrote
that too.
The first thing I could see from it was a movie, right? So I watched it as a movie. So I did a multiple POV. And by the way, I'm probably the only fantasy author in the world. I've never read a Sanderson book.
I've read a couple of his, but not.
I've never read a Sanderson book, but I've heard that's how he writes his books. I heard he writes his books.
Yes.
Like a script,
Yeah,
like a movie
I've
script.
read a couple of his books, and they're pretty much multi POV. They're I don't know if they're all third person, but the ones I read.
And then so my horror book is going to be single. It's going to be specifically first person. And then my sci-fi has a little mix of both because it's the characters. So I had so many characters in my Eldradune 10-book series
Right.
that I wanted to really write more character centric with fewer characters. So that's my sci-fi. The crew on the ship is 5 people.
Okay.
And so
That's a good way to limit the number of characters. It's like,
Correct.
well,
And
there's
add
5
some
people
more
on the crew,
development.
and that's it.
Correct. And then the people they meet are going to be the interesting additions and challenges and stuff like that. Who you want to help. And then everyone's a different from a different planet on the crew as well. So you have all of that mixed together as well. So
Right.
I think it's an interesting contrast. So that's kind of how my sci-fi books are going to go. And again, first book done. That has not gone to editing yet, so that hasn't gone to an editor yet, but I have 3 books ready for that. The horror book, 90% done, first person narrative. That one should be very interesting. And then the fantasy book series that I'm really interested in, the crime series. I have not started the crime series stuff at all, but because I have a degree in forensic science, a master's in forensic science and a PhD in forensic psychology.
Wow.
So I used to work crime scenes with the federal government. So I'm very leery. I don't like how some books take away the actual truth from crime, lab statistics, interrogations, how crimes are
Right.
solved. So I'm actually trying to make an accurate, current crime series that actually throws accuracy into the facts. It might not be interesting because the characters are going to have to carry the story because they're not going to have lab results yet, right? So they're not going to have the "I gotcha," the next minute like most episodic TV series have.
Yeah.
So it's going to be so character derived on how they're going to find the evidence or put the story together. I think it's going to be much cooler to go that route as opposed to just.
I mean, like,
lab
there's a
results and
lot
questions.
of crime fiction that is like that. So you're
Right.
not writing something totally new and
No, it's
different.
not.
There
It's not.
are a lot of I like reading crime fiction too. And I've read a lot of stuff that is very procedural. There is a police procedural category in most bookstores, and there are a lot of people who like reading that.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
I fell in love with those series a long time ago. It's not just the one sheriff who does his business in the book and then moves on to the next small town, then has the next murder mystery, then moves on to the next small town. I mean, those are interesting. I like those, but I don't know. I kind of like the. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I have a whole bunch of friends I used to work with who are currently working, and some that are retired that have decades and decades and decades of cases and work that I can derive stuff from as well. Just my own personal experiences. So I'm definitely going to use them as resources for some of the crime scenes,
Right.
interviews, stuff like that. So I'm going to try to add as much real stuff into it with it still being a fiction book. So that's my goal with it. But
That
will
sounds
see.
cool.
We will see. So I'll keep writing until the end. So I'm 50 years old now. So
You got
12
many more years to
12 books written. It'll probably take me the rest of my life to do 36, but I'm going to try.
Well, if you write like 3 books a year, that's 36 books in 12 years. If you write
Yeah.
more than that a
honestly,
year, like I
It's
did.
finding the time for all of it, personally. It's finding the time. And my writing style is very strange. So I don't just write the book.
Right.
When I do all my background, I write a short story about each character or about each place. So I have a short story in my head written before I start writing the manuscript. So I probably have thousands of pages just for the Eldradune series of background material.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't do
Well,
any of that. I just
Yeah.
sit down and decide I'm going to write this and just
No,
see where it goes.
again, I'm jealous because I sometimes on the fantasy stuff I felt like I wanted to make sure at least some of those things made sense, the rules. And
Yeah, but I've been
things.
thinking about this world since I was like 4 or 5.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You've got
So,
a good
like,
head start. Yeah.
Yeah, I had like a lot of headspace devoted to it already.
That's so
So
good. That's so
like
great.
it was just like, where do we start when I sat down to decided to try and write a story,
jealous. I'm jealous.
that was
I
the
mean, you
thing.
get to
Where
read
do we
books for work.
start? We
You get to
have
read books for work. That's great.
Well, not for my job, but
Okay.
I'm not an editor for the
Okay.
company. I'm on the product management side, but yeah. But I mean, I do listen to audiobooks.
I like audiobooks too. I'm just starting out very late. So my first audiobook will actually be released the first week of September.
Yeah, I
So
don't
I'm
have
very,
any
very
audiobooks of
behind.
my
Very,
own
very
yet.
behind on audiobook.
Yeah, I don't have any, so you're ahead in that. Just, I don't know. I might try again to narrate them myself. Like,
I
I
tried
would
that
like,
and it sounds terrible.
yeah, I would like someone else to do it, but I just, the expense and not having ACX access to it makes that really difficult.
Yeah, I've learned actually myself how to make it ACX myself, but I actually have an editor I found who's willing to do it. I just need him to do EQ work
Right.
because I can make it ACX certified because I can
No, no,
run with
I
other
can't
files.
put the book on ACX because they don't have Amazon
Because of the
anymore.
Amazon account.
And that's kind of the
I see.
biggest
I see.
market. So even if I could find a
I
narrator who would
see.
do
Oh,
it
that's
for a rate
terrible.
that I could afford, and I wouldn't be able to put it on Amazon, so
You can
which is
still
the
do Apple
biggest
though.
market.
You still do Apple though, right? Apple and
I mean, it could get to the wider stores, but it's not. You yeah. If you Audible is where most people make their audiobook money. So
gotcha. Well, no, that's good to
yeah,
know because I'm so slow on audiobooks, and because I have so many complicated pronunciation of words, I actually got a text from someone who's reading my books now, and he was like, "Hey, I'm started book 4, and I listened to them, and he's older, so he has Amazon do their Alexa
yeah,
read, and he's like, I don't think these words are supposed to be pronounced this way, and I'm like, they're not. I'm like, you won't know until you read the audiobook, so just take it for what it is. I can't change how Alexa changes pronunciation, so."
yeah.
I don't authorize them to do like I don't authorize them to do the virtual read.
Right.
However, you can still have the Alexa app and the Kindle app do the read. It's like a aid. It's like some
Yeah.
it's just reading software.
Right.
So
It's
it's like
for
sounds like a robot. But yeah.
yeah accessibility.
So yeah, I'll get the audiobook out soon. But anyway, I really
Yeah, no, you're welcome to come back and talk as long as it's related to fantasy and it's something we didn't, something we didn't talk about.
absolutely.
I mean, like it wasn't the topic of the previous episode. We could have touched on it, but wasn't the topic of the previous episode of a previous episode.
No,
That's
I'm good
fine.
with I'm good with talking about anything. Even
All
if it's
right.
a new cool book comes out and we talk about it, I'm cool with that too.
Yeah, no, we can do something like that too. I'm game for anything. Like I said, it's very open ended as long as it's fantasy. Those are the only real rules.
100%.
Thank you all for tuning in and listening, and definitely go check out the Twin Moons of Eldradune. And there's a lot more coming, which is exciting. So have a great day or great night wherever you are, and go read some fantasy books.
Bye bye.